Okay, so I'm up here sweating like crazy. It's hot up here, and this isn't what I signed up for up north. It's supposed to be cool up here, but it's going to be 30 degrees, and normally there's very little humidity up here because we're not like in central Ontario or south central Ontario where I live, where all the air comes from the west and goes over the Great Lakes and picks up humidity. I mean, there are lakes that it can come over, but this is just like, this is nuts for up here. And it's morning, and I'm just starting. For a while there, I thought, oh no, there's something wrong with the ticker again, and I guess I'm sweating like a dog. Anyways, so I wanted to kind of talk about layout for the walls. Some people may just go along and think that they can just start nailing boards up willy-nilly wherever they want to. But it's just like doing ceramic tile. If you've never done that before, then you should actually try and learn how to do it properly, because if you don't know what you're doing and you start like on the back of a bathroom wall and in one corner and work towards the back, or if you see a tile guy that's ever done that, then you know you've done a really crappy job, because you're supposed to lay the tiles out in any floor, any bathtub, and it's the same here. So what I've done here is, give me a second. I put little, I don't know if you can see them or not, there's little 1/4-inch wooden blocks on the floor. And the 1/4-inch wooden blocks on the floor have to be there because wood is going to expand and contract in the seasons. Like right now with this humidity in here, this wood's going to be swelling up like crazy. And then in the winter it's going to be shrinking a lot. So you have to, you can't just go and nail it on the floor, because you have getting cupping in you, and you'll end up with a real mess. Let's see if I got that right. So anyways, you can't just go ahead and start nailing boards. The high for this was, I laid it out. Sometimes you can just measure. Sometimes the boards are a little bit off too, or you can just put the boards together. Find my hammer here. Put this in. Could have been a bit shorter, but it will go against. Okay. No, the bottom isn't in all the way too. It's the measurement I got from the other side when I figured out the other side. The reason that you have to do this is because if you were to do a big wall or something, like the way I did the end walls, I measured up. You don't want to end up with a 1-inch strip on the top. You end up something like a 1-inch or a 1/4-inch strip on the top to finish it. It looks stupid. And then the other thing is, if everything isn't always perfectly level. So here I'm just going by the floor. I'm not snapping a chalk line because I'm plastic. I did the framing here. I figure the floor should be pretty straight. Yeah, sometimes things happen. But even this part of the wall here, I'll figure out a measurement to make sure that by the time I get to the top, I don't end up with a sliver. That's another thing you do when you're doing a tub surround or a shower. You make sure that you don't have a sliver, or when you're doing a floor, like a ceramic floor or something like that, or even laminate or anything like that too. You really should be measuring just to make sure, because if everything's not at a square, you might have one side of a hallway an inch showing, and then that disappears on the other side of a hallway, at the other end of the hallway, and that looks really bad. But if you had a 6-inch piece that diminished to a 1-inch piece, you wouldn't really notice it So you always have to worry about your layout when you do these sorts of things. So that's why I've kind of, like I said, one of the reasons I'm doing this channel is so that people learn to do things right. The other thing is like staggering your joints properly. So I've seen people stagger their joints just where like they're very close together. It's just, you look at it and you say, wow. But you know, they don't know what they're doing. But then that's no excuse. I watch YouTube videos to learn stuff that I don't know, and I am having this channel to show people stuff that they might not know so that they can, you know, gain that knowledge and do it themselves, right? Because when you're working up here, trying to find someone to do this sort of work is like a carpenter or something is hard, so you better learn how to do it right. Yeah, so I'm going to keep working here. Pull that a bit. Floor wasn't as level as I thought, or not. Great, I guess. Joists move all the time. Something else I wanted to show: when you nail this sort of thing, kind of like flooring, try and put your nail so that, in other words, what I'm doing here, the tongue, this is the tongue, that's the groove down there, and you put your nail in right at that corner there, so that you end up, when the next board goes on, it should cover the nail, and so you end up with a wall where you don't see a bunch of nails sticking out, and where you have to putty them. There are quite a few spots where I've had to put nail holes just because. Like, you know, if I'm nailing in here, I have nothing else to nail onto. I have to nail from the bottom up. So that nail, and then we just fill that afterwards. But anyways, as far as that first, I got a nice long straight one to be the second one that I put on the bottom. And you might see me do this, put this up or not, because my battery on my camera is running low. See how you fit there. Not very well. Okay, let's go on. Why are we not going into the corner? disadvantage with being the only person like trying to do this yourself on a long board. This is trying to bang it down. And I'm not tight to this end either. Okay, the only other thing would be to start from the other end. If you can get the tongue started, you can get it started in the groove and then go along and bang it in. It usually goes. I haven't. That'll teach me for trying to do a whole board. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording for a little bit because I think I'm gonna need help here. So later. So I decided that maybe using a long piece of board on the bottom might be hard because the first board, because the bottom plate might not be lined up perfectly. It could be kind of pushing the top of this really thin sliver up. So we'll see how this one works. Need my little hammering board to hammer it down. Hang on. We'll get something better. Block of wood so that you don't smash all your tongue to bits. Where are you not going tight? There we go. I think I'm having the same problem. It's just wanting to drop down. Come on. Yeah, it's starting to here. I'm going along here. Bouncing. There we go. think I got it in. It's kind of changing, so I gotta try and put a nail in at one end. Put an extra one in there, just to stop it from popping up. So definitely easier when it wasn't. Oh shoot, nailed it too low. The bottom board, because like I said, the small piece on the bottom was probably just bending in slightly. It's kind of hard always to get a bottom or a top plate to line up perfectly, so. Usually you can tell by the sound too that it's had gone down in all the way. I don't mind nailing. When you're down low like this in an uncomfortable position, you see I'm sitting in a chair because I'm 67 and my back's not the way it used to be. My knees aren't as good as they were. It's hard for me to get up from my knees. So working like this makes my life a lot easier. Yeah, so I gotta cut the next piece. Like I said, it's gonna make sure that how my joints line up. And when I get this piece done, I'm gonna have to figure out. So I'll probably stop recording for a little bit, but I'm gonna have to switch this around here. I'm gonna have to put the next piece up there, and then there will be a piece going across the top, an angled piece, and then wherever that one ends up in that stairwell there, I will have to start to measure down, like put boards together and measure down, and then cut the end one so that my boards coming up from the bottom end up lining up perfectly with the board that's going to go across here, right? So you don't want to splice that, so you got to figure that out. And then the other side, there's going to be a cedar closet going in the back of that. So I'm going to wait until I'm at the first seam in the drywall there before I put the ceiling across. Okay. That's it for now. So I've got the little piece on the stairwell done going up. I measured it and cut the piece on the bottom, but it's always one of those things where you should check it as you're going up. So this board on top here, that's kind of overlapping a little bit so that I could use that as where I should end up. I just tacked it in place originally. Measured down, like you can either put a bunch of boards together like that I have on the floor, or measure from an existing one. So I kind of, to figure out where that piece is supposed to go, there's two ways. You can measure like the boards that are already existing up on the ceiling, or you can put see that those pieces of pine I put together. I use that as kind of a gauge. So I have the one board that kind of overlaps, and then I measure and I cut the bottom piece, and then as I'm coming up, I keep checking with that. So like, you know, when you do one, then you measure, instead of measuring like 5 boards up, you only measure like 3 boards up, and you make sure that it's working out okay, that you don't have a gap. And one of the things that happened here was, I don't know if you can see that, but over on this side it ended up being a little bit lower. It's one of those things that's really difficult to do, because to start it off, you cut a piece on the bottom, a strip at a 45. You don't know 100%, especially with the plastic, that that's gone on perfectly well. So what happened is I ended up having to kind of notch the one board out there, and there is a gap. But what you can do is you can take a board and kind of bang the pieces up to kind of close that gap so you don't really see it. It's possible that you may not see it anyways, but I think that's something I'll do once I have the stairs in. It's easier to have access to that than the little box I have standing down there. I almost fell off of that when I was working on it. I stepped over to the left and started going down, but my head hit the side of the stairs, and I used my head to save me. I didn't fall because my head hit the side and kept me upright. Anyways, so also done a bit more work on here, and we're up to this point now. Try and get these boards going into the top today, and then I've left that space out there for closet. And I have some cedar here that I'll probably cut up and dress down, and then go inside the closet afterwards, because the room size is definitely big enough that we can take, I think that's about 3.5 to 4 feet out of the room, and leave a closet in the back, and then we have a nice kind of place to put our headboard for our bed. Okay, so time to get to work. So now I've gotten to the last board up there, and I had to go along and measure. Seems that down at that far end, you see I've cut that little block of wood in there. I cut that little block of wood. It actually had to be, to make sure it fit. And this side actually had to be cut down a little bit. And then when I did that, I measured across and I got 78 inches. However, 78 inches is between on the inside, so you have to add, when you measure that 45, you add an inch. So I would add an inch on both sides, so I would have 80 inches. So what I did is I laid it out here. I was trying to measure it on the wall, but it was just easier to lay it out with pieces. And I got my 78 inch mark and the 80 inch mark. Now, since I'm so close to the edge, I'm not going to cut both boards, because this is almost a full board. You're not really going to see that. If it had been kind of the other way, where there was just a strip here, right? Well, then I would have cut both ends of the boards to make the whole ceiling part look even from one end to the other. But that's not a whole lot. So in other words, I'll be looking at one side. I'll be looking at a piece from here. So a piece from here over to there, and then the other side will be a full piece. And I don't really think that anyone's going to notice that. And it's really not worth it to go and cut a strip off of here so it's perfectly level. I guess if I wanted to be a perfectionist, I could, but since the end is going to be this close, I figure no one's really going to see it, because the amount of work it takes to go and cut the one end down, and then you have to cut it at a 45, then you have to bevel it again, because it looks really nice when you put the beveled edge up there. So all you're seeing is, like in the bottom corner over there, you're seeing the beveled edge. This beveled edge will butt up against the so it'll actually go like this. All I gotta do is, you can see this, all I gotta do is notch this out here, and then when the ceiling, when it goes in there, it goes in like this. Okay, so all I gotta do is just notch this out, and I'll get that. So in other words, what you'll see is, you'll see the ceiling going, and you'll see that, and it's a nice 45-degree angle there. So hopefully it works out. The other problem too is that when I get to the end, depending on what side I start from, when I get to the end, especially up there, I may have to be planing the board down, because that is 1/4 of an inch less than the one on the other side, which isn't bad considering that we're doing a wall about 30 feet, and you know, it was a little bit harder to tell coming across here because they had to leave up the spot for the closet, so we're kind of measuring as good as we can. So once I get the ceiling in, and the ceiling will end at that top plate there, which I had to put in because I needed to put the stack in for the roof. Then once I get the ceiling in, then I'm going to frame the walls in on both sides, do the electrical in the walls, and also frame in the closet there. And then I'll do the inside of or the bedroom side of that with the pine, and then do each wall inside out here with pine. And then I'll be done the upstairs for now. And then the next phase will be, I guess we're going to try and get the bathroom in downstairs. It's getting into winter, so we'll be able to take these rooms, clean them up, vacuum them nicely, put beds in here. And then if we have a bathroom downstairs, and we don't have to be using the trailer anymore. And the trailer is it's kind of like there's no insulation at all. Anyways, get myself on camera here. Yeah, the trailer is like there's no insulation at all. And last night I went to bed. I got up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was sweating, and then went to the bathroom, just played solitaire on my playbook for half an hour, and then fell asleep. And in no time at all, I was freezing. And I had to put really heavy covers on because it was so cold. And my friend was sleeping in the cabin here, and even though it's not complete, he was the same temperature all night, and he was very comfortable. That was the other thing I should maybe show, and that is how well the insulation has worked in here. Just give me a second, and I have so this wall here is the sun has been hitting that for quite a while now. Let's get close to that. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so it's not really changing at 19.1. 19, so it's dropping down. But you can kind of see it's 19, 18. So it's going, it's taking its time reading the temperature. Okay, but the sun has been hitting that roof now for a couple of hours, and I've been testing this constantly. It keeps, thank you for keeping going down. I don't understand why it's doing that. But anyways, if I go to the other side where the sun hasn't hit, okay, and there you can see it's also going down, but the difference in temperature that I've measured so far from one side to the other is very minimal. So in other words, it just goes to show that the insulation that we've done up here is working. In other words, on a day that's really hot, so if you have a day that's really hot, sun's beating against this metal roof, and you think the upstairs is going to be hot. Well, if the difference in temperature from that wall to the other wall, and so far I've only measured it to be about 0.4 degrees Celsius. If that's the only difference, then the way that the roof was done properly, because all the hot air that's in there is getting moved up into the vent up at the top of the roof and being carried away. So in other words, on a hot summer day, you'll be up here and it's really not going to heat up from that. The only heat that's going to come up here is the hot air from downstairs, because hot air rises. It'll come up and stay up here, but it's not going to be nearly as... So if the downstairs is nice and cool, then the upstairs isn't going to be that much hotter. And the upstairs isn't going to heat up like in some of these old houses. You go upstairs and when they're poorly insulated and the temperature just skyrockets in there because there isn't enough insulation. The heat from the shingles and from the roof comes into the bedrooms upstairs, and it gets really hot. So in here, that doesn't really happen. So, I mean, that's a success, especially with a sloped roof like that. And hopefully the other parts of the insulation that I'm doing also work out as well as this. And in the end, we only have to heat this place with a really small wood stove and nothing else. Okay.